What's going on, everyone? TM24 Plays here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. Today, we're continuing our series of ranking all the cards in Marvel Snap. Of course, we split it up based on cost, so today it's going to be the 2-drops. Now remember, if a card that you like and think is particularly strong, I don't have high on my list, it doesn't mean it's a bad card. Like I said in the last video, in Snap, pretty much every card is playable and has its uses, which is something that is just amazing about the game. We are going to get into the rankings here in a moment, but please remember to subscribe and like the video because it really does help me out. But for now, let's get into ranking these 2-drops, and we got a lot of them. All right, here we go. We're starting to rank these 2-drops, and we're starting off with Lizard. I think we all can agree that Lizard is pretty strong. He's 2-5. His ongoing is if the opponent has 4 cards in that location. He loses 3 power. Overall, though, I still think Lizard's really strong. I think he's right on the fringe of the top 10. Maybe he reaches there. Maybe he's right at 10. I feel like that's a pretty good spot for him for now. But remember, as these rankings are going, it's going to be fluid. So maybe I put him at 10 now, but he might get bumped down. He might get bumped up. It all depends on what we're thinking as we go through these cards. Next up is Mysterio. So he puts an illusion at the locations that he isn't played. 2-4, decent power. Honestly, I don't particularly like Mysterio. I could see why he's played. I could see his uses. Honestly, I think he's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. I don't think he's bad, but I just don't like him all that much. I think 27 for now is going to be a good spot for him. Colleen Wing, another 2-4. So far, all the 2-drops we've done have had pretty good power. She discards the lowest cost card in your hand, which is a pretty good effect, especially in the decks that she's played in. Most of the time you're hitting, maybe you're hitting Swarm, something like that, and we'll see him later. But Colleen Wing, I think she's okay. I think she's solid in her decks. I don't think she is crucial, though. I don't think she's better than Lizard. Is she better than Mysterio? Probably. But for now, I'm going to throw her somewhere in the mid-20s, and I'm just going to stick her at 23. I feel like that's okay for now. We'll see if it stays that way. Next up, we've got Cloak. Another 2-4. Next turn, both players can move cards to this location. I love movement abilities. I don't think Cloak is played as much as he should. I think he's got utility outside of just the movement decks. Overall, I think he's pretty strong. I think he's probably stronger than Colleen Wing. I don't think he's quite as strong as Lizard, though. So, for me, I'm going to put Cloak right here. He's right at 20. He might get bumped up, but for now, 20 seems like a good spot. Next up, Viper. So, essentially, you're giving control of one of your cards to your opponent. Now, I think this is more of kind of a very, very niche card. I don't think she's particularly strong. She's 2-3. Hopefully you're giving them, maybe you give them Electro, maybe you give them, the Hood, the -2 power, something like that. But overall, I just don't think Viper's all that great. I think she is in the lower rung of the 2-drops, which would lead me to kind of put her down here for now. 39 seems fair. Next up, we've got Swarm, which we talked about with Colleen Wing. So if he gets discarded, you get 2 copies in your hand that cost 0, which I think is huge. So I think that's really, really strong. There are more discard options other than just Colleen Wing. I think he's probably stronger than Cloak as well. I don't know if he quite reaches Lizard yet, but I do think he's probably somewhere around here. I think 17 feels pretty good for Swarm. Next up is Shocker, a 2-3, no ability. Great in those Patriot-style decks. I think probably not quite as strong as... Oh, I lost him. All right, sorry about that. I had to figure out where I put Shocker. But like I was saying, I don't think Shocker's all that strong. I think he is probably not quite as strong as even Mysterio. I think he's closer to Viper than Mysterio. I do think he's probably better than Viper, so I'm going to put him... Let's put him at 35 for now. All right, next up is Sentinel. 2-3 on reveal, add another Sentinel to your hand. I think that's pretty strong. I think he's played in several decks. I think he's probably better than Swarm. His ability is his own to control as long as he doesn't get hit by Cosmo or something like that. I think he might even be better than Lizard. I think it's close. I think maybe for now I'm going to put him at 8. I'm not quite sure, But those two might end up switching at some point. For now, though, I feel that Sentinel is probably better and deserves to be up in that top 10 with Lizard. Scarlet Witch, replace this location with a random new one. I'm not super fond of random effects, but I love that Scarlet Witch is a 2/3, so you can play her early to get rid of some of those locations. So for that, she moves up a little bit on my list. I do think she's probably better than Mysterio, at least to me. Maybe, is she better than Colleen Wing? Maybe. To me, it's a maybe. I think I would feel comfortable putting her... Maybe I'll put her right next to Colleen Wing, right behind for now. We'll put Scarlet Witch right there. All right, another 2/3 in Quake. If this is in the middle location, swap the positions of each location. I don't think Quake is particularly strong. You have to play her in the middle to get her ability. Otherwise, she's just a 2/3. I think she deserves to be kind of in these lower rungs here. Do I think she's better than Viper? Probably not even. I mean, Viper could hit multiple targets. You have to play Quake in the middle. I think Quake is pretty weak for now. Now, she can surprise opponents, which is great. But overall, I just don't think she's all that useful. Multiple Man. Great in movement decks. Other than that, he's not... I mean, I haven't seen him played in any other style deck than those movement decks. And for me, I don't feel he's all that strong. He's only 3 power. Now, if you could hit him with a Hulkbuster or something like that, it feels a little bit better. But if you're asking me, I would probably rather have Mysterio. I think I'd rather have Colleen Wing, Scarlet Witch. I think he's right next to Shocker for me. But maybe a couple spots above. Maybe 32. 32 seems okay for now. All right, Maria Hill. On reveal, add a random 1-cost card to your hand. I don't particularly care for random effects. 1-drops, they can be okay, but in the end, it's only a 1-drop. So how powerful is it? Are you even going to get to play it? Overall, I don't think she's all that strong. I think she's probably closer to this lower tier. I was going to say maybe in this spot, but honestly, I think she's lower than Shocker. I think I would probably put her maybe right above Viper for now. I think I'd rather have Maria Hill than these two, but I think I'd rather have Shocker than Maria Hill. All right, next up, Falcon. Another super niche card. Return your 1-cost cards to your hand. I think that can be super useful. I made a deck built around him and Beast, and it actually performed pretty well. So I'm kind of fond of Falcon. Now I realize he's not the strongest. He's got a very niche effect. He's probably not even quite as good as Mysterio, even though I don't particularly care for Mysterio. But I do think he's probably better than Multiple Man. Maybe we'll put him up here closer to 29. Domino. You always draw this card on turn 2 and not before. It's great because you can play on curve. It's 2/3, so, it's not terrible in terms of power. It pretty much is, an average 2/3, or an average 2-drop that you always get to play onto. So, overall, solid, not great. It's nice if maybe you've got a deck full of big things that you don't want to draw, but I just struggle to put her super high on the list. I think I would have to toss her lower, and I think she's probably closer down here. Now, early on, I thought she was great. I would always go Quicksilver right into Domino. I could play on curve and know that I have power down. But now that I've got, a little bit bigger collection, more cards to play, I just don't think Domino is all that great. All right, next up we got Colossus. Ongoing. Can't be destroyed, moved, or have its power reduced. I think Colossus he's kind of sneaky. He's pretty good. That effect is really nice. He does get hit by like Spectrum and things like that as well, so he can be buffed. Overall, I think Colossus is solid. I do think he's probably... I don't think would I rather have him or Mysterio? Honestly, I think I'd rather have Colossus. But I think he's probably closer to the Scarlet Witch area, at least for me. Baron Mordo. On reveal, your opponent draws a card and sets its cost to 6. He's kind of a risk. What if you draw a 6-drop? It's already a 6. It doesn't matter. You thin out their deck as well. I honestly haven't played him a whole lot. I haven't seen him played a whole lot. Now, I have seen him, fairly recently. But overall, I don't think he's too strong. For me, I would probably throw him in the 30s. Would I rather have him or Falcon? I think Falcon. Would I rather have him or Multiple Man? Probably Multiple Man. He's probably closer to Shocker. Honestly, I would probably put him right here. He does have some upside if you hit something that is super useful for them. Maybe you hit, like a Wave or a Wong, something like that. It's great, but overall, I'm not super fond of Baron. Armor, 2-3, ongoing. Cards at this location can't be destroyed. I think we finally got a card that's going to be in the top 5. I think Armor's really, really strong. He can kind of protect some of your big things. Maybe he's protecting a Sunspot. I think Armor deserves a spot up in the top 5. I think 3 is a safe spot to put him, knowing that he might get bumped up, he might get bumped down, but I think for now, Armor feels pretty good at 3. And another card that I believe is going to be in the top 5. Now, before his nerf, he was a 3-drop. Now he's a 2-drop, of course, but I still think he's pretty strong. He allows you to get a 4-drop down on 3 if you play him on 2. So I do think he still belongs up in those top tiers. I think he is he's close with Armor. He's really close with Armor. I'm going to stick him at 4 for now. Who knows? Maybe by the end of this video, I'll have him above Armor. I'm not sure yet, but Zabu is strong. And same thing with Wolverine. We're seeing a lot of strong 2-drops now. Before his buff, he wasn't quite strong. Now I'm seeing him a lot. I'm seeing him in discard decks. I'm seeing him in destroy decks. I'm seeing him in Galactus decks. I think he's got a lot of utility. He can be buffed multiple times. I think Wolverine is a really nice card to have and use. Right now, I think he is probably even better than Sentinel, and I might have Sentinel too high right now. I think, thinking about it, I don't think Sentinel's quite at Wolverine's power level, but you get multiple of them. I do think Wolverine deserves to be up here in the top 10 for sure. He might get bumped. I do think he's better than Sentinel, but I think I'd rather have Zabu than Wolverine, which is why I'm going to put him there for now. All right, Star-Lord. If your opponent played a card here, +3 power. Similar to like Mantis and Rocket Raccoon, I don't care for these style of effects. You're basically guessing where your opponent's going to play. Now, of course, you can make it easier by forcing them to play somewhere, but overall, I'm not super fond of these effects. I do realize a 2-5 can be super strong if it hits, but that's if it hits. For me, I would say Star-Lord is not one of the cards that I typically put in the decks that I play. In fact, I don't think I'd even rather... maybe I'd put him above Multiple Man, but lower than Falcon. That, to me, feels good. Scorpion, another high-tier, high-power 2-drop card. I think Scorpion's super useful. Overall, though, would I rather have him or Wolverine? I think I've put Scorpion in far more decks. I would rather have Zabu, but I'm going to stick Scorpion right here. Next up, we've got Okoye. Give every card in your deck +1 power. So kind of the opposite of Scorpion there, where he's giving -1 to everything in your opponent's hand. You're giving +1 to everything in your deck. So I think Okoye is pretty strong, but I don't think she's quite at the same level as any of the 2s that are going to be in the top 10. I think overall, she probably deserves a spot in the mid-teens. Would I rather have her or Swarm? It depends on the style of deck, of course, but I think if I'm just comparing them side by side, I think I'm going to take Okoye, but I think it's close. All right, Mojo. If both players have 4 cards at this location, +6 power. So a 2-8, if you can pull off his ability. Super strong. I do see him played a lot, but, how often is your opponent going to fill up a lane that you're also filling up? In the style of decks that I play, typically not too often, but I can see why he's so strong. I think he deserves a spot in the mid-teens as well. I think I would rather have Mojo than Okoye, but I think it's close. I think he deserves a spot right next to her. Mr. Sinister. On reveal, add a Sinister clone to this location with the same power. So if you can buff him, great. If you're playing Patriot, his clone gets buffed. If you're playing Cerebro, it's 2 down. I can see the uses for Mr. Sinister. I personally don't think he's all that great. I think he's probably a mid-teens as well. I think for me, Mr. Sinister is probably going to sit, I think he's going to sit somewhere right around here. I think 18 seems okay for now. Actually, I think I'd rather have him than Swarm, so maybe we push him to 16, and Swarm will stay at 17 for now. Next up, Medusa. On reveal, if this is in the middle location, +2 power. So a 2/4 if you get to play her in the middle, and I feel like most of the time you have that opportunity if you have her in hand. So for me, I feel like she's great. I think she's awesome in, early on in the game. You get her early, so you get that 2/4 power down. I think she's really strong. I think she, it's 4 power, almost guaranteed. It is an on-reveal effect, so there is a chance, maybe she hits a Cosmo if you play her late, but maybe you can Odin her to get that buff again, but is an extra 2 really all that good? For me, I think she's better than she looks, but honestly, she's probably still not as good as even some of these cards. I think I would feel pretty comfortable putting her right there at 26. Kraven, when a card moves here, this gets +2 power. Again, another movement specific card. I think Kraven's a solid card. Honestly, he's probably deserves a spot in the 20s somewhere. Do I think he's better than Colleen Wing? Probably not. Not Scarlet Witch, not Colossus. Maybe Medusa. So maybe a spot right there feels better. And I think I'm going to move these ones up a bit. I think they're going to deserve a little bit higher ranking. And I think Kraven's going to fit kind of nicely, maybe right here. Would I rather have Kraven or Medusa? In their respective decks, probably Kraven. Invisible Woman. Ongoing. Cards you play here are not revealed until the game ends. I think that's a super strong effect. It's tough because it can't, it gives your opponent the whole game to counter it. So I think that holds her back a little bit. You get her down on 2, and maybe you're playing MODOK discard. You get MODOK down, you get Hela on 6. But on 6, they just, they're ahead, so they just play and, a Cosmo. Or they remove that ability, and then your Hela hits, and nothing happens because, nothing's been discarded. Same thing can be said for, like, Wong style of decks that use her. I think it's a really cool effect. I think it's too easy to counter in most instances. So for me, I think I'm probably going to slap her maybe right here. That feels pretty good, 18. I think that's fair for kind of her power level, her ability. Hazmat, on reveal, afflict all other cards with -1 power. Now, I really like Hazmat. I like her style decks. I love using her in Luke Cage, which of course we'll see shortly. But just looking at her, a 2/2 that gives -1, it's tough to say where her power lies. If they have a lot of cards down, she's obviously a lot better. For me, I really like Hazmat. I think she deserves to be a little bit higher up. I think I would prefer to have Hazmat over Cloak, yes. Over Invisible Woman, probably. I do feel these are fairly strong, though. So maybe Hazmat is going to fit nicely right here, knowing that, we have a lot of spots up here. Maybe all these cards get bumped based on what's to come. Goose. Nobody can play cards that cost 4, 5, or 6 at this location. Now, I really, really love Goose. It's almost like you're locking down a lane. And, if you get the location that, 4, 5, and 6 can't be played, 2 lanes are locked down. Your deck's built around it. So I think Goose is amazing. I think Goose is super, super strong. And I would even say that, Goose deserves a spot right here in the top 5 for now. Daredevil. On turn 5, you get to see your opponent's plays before you make your own. I think that's super strong. If you're playing a control deck, you've got Professor X in hand. If they go first, maybe they play something big. You can counter it. I think Daredevil's great. I think he definitely deserves a spot in the top 10. Actually, I think I'd rather have him than Sentinel, Wolverine, maybe Scorpion. Probably Scorpion. I think all of these are going to get bumped 1. And I'm going to stick Daredevil. I'm going to stick Daredevil real high. I'm going to put him all the way up at 6 for now. I think that feels good. I love control style decks, so knowing what my opponent's going to do the turn before the game ends is, super, super strong. Dagger. When this moves to a location, +2 power for each card your opponent has there. So it is a little bit dependent on your opponent, meaning it can whiff. She's super similar to Kraven, and I think that's kind of where she belongs, right next to him. So I think 24, hey, great number, is a good spot for Dagger. And that's the buff Dagger. Of course, the update came out today, and she did receive a little bit of buff, going from a 2-1 to a 2-2. Next up is Carnage. On reveal, destroy your other cards here, +2 power for each destroyed. I think Carnage is awesome. I think he's a very, very good card. Of course, you can only get up to like a 2-8 in most cases, so that holds him back a little bit, but I think he's strong, and honestly, I think I would rather have him than most 2-drops, but I still think he's probably on average a little bit weaker than Lizard, but he deserves a spot up there. These might get bumped, and maybe he makes it into the top 10, so we'll see. Next up, we've got Cable. Put the bottom card of your opponent's deck into your hand. I don't like playing my opponent's cards, because if I wanted his cards, I would just ask for them. You know, I would just put them in my deck, you know? Now, you do get additional value as you have a card to play, and you can kind of know what your opponent's playing. You get a little bit of read on them early in the game, especially if you get him down on 2, so I can see how he is strong. But for me, I'm not a big fan of Cable. I think he probably deserves a spot lower on this list, and for me, I think he lands real nicely at 30. The Collector. When a card enters your hand from anywhere except your deck, +1 power. I think the Collector is really, really strong. I think he probably deserves a spot in these teams. We've got a couple here. I think on average, I would probably take him over Mojo, but maybe not Carnage, so I think he fits in real nicely in between them. So I think Collector going there is a very nice spot. Beast. Return your other cards at this location to your hand. They cost 1 less. I think Beast is great. Like I said, I made a deck with Beast and Falcon, and it was awesome. You know, I was able to commit cards to a certain lane, play Beast, get out of that lane, play him somewhere else, and it just felt really, really strong. So for me, I think Beast is very strong as well. Now, would I rather have him than Collector, Mojo, Okoye, Carnage? I think I probably... yes, over Collector, maybe not Carnage. I think Carnage is strong. So I feel the Beast is going to land right here for me. All right, we're getting kind of full here. If we move one card, we might have to end up moving a couple, but hey, that's all right. Next up, we've got Cyclock. So on reveal, next turn, you get +1 energy. So she's great in ramp-style decks. Maybe you're playing Mr. Negative, you want to get him down on 4. She's awesome. But I struggle because she's only 1 power, so even getting that +1 energy doesn't feel all that great most of the time. So for me, I think she's probably a little bit weaker. I think she probably sits in the 20s, maybe 28. Would I rather have her or Falcon? Yeah, probably Cyclock. And actually, I'd probably rather have her than Mysterio. I'm going to bump Mysterio down. What about Medusa? I think I'd rather have Medusa on average, so I'm going to stick Cyclock right there at 27. All right, next up, Luke Cage. Your cards can't have their power reduced. I love combo style decks. Luke Cage with Hazmat and Gambit is one of my favorite decks to play. Even if it's not all that great, it's just fun. So for me, Luke Cage he's pretty good, but he's kind of got the same problem as Cyclock, is that he's a 2-1. So while he can prevent your other cards from losing power, essentially meaning he adds their power, a 2-1 still doesn't feel all that great. If you whiff on your combo, it's just a 1 power. So overall, I think he probably deserves a spot in the 20s as well. Our 20s are full. Would I rather have him than Multiple Man? Yes. Him over Star-Lord? Definitely. Him over Cable? Definitely. I really enjoy Falcon. I'm not a big fan of Mysterio. I'm going to move Mysterio down. I'm going to leave Falcon there from now. Luke Cage or Cyclock? I think I'd rather have Cyclock on average. So I'm going to put Luke Cage right here for now. All right, we're getting close to completely filling up our rankings here. If you stayed so far, I just want to say thank you, but let's keep going. Morbius, ongoing, +2 power for each time you discarded a card this game. Of course, Morbius is super strong right now, especially in MODOK style decks. So for that, I think I've got to give him a high ranking. I think he probably deserves a spot above Wolverine. I don't know, on average Scorpion. I love Control, which is why Goose and Daredevil are there. I'm going to bump Armor. I'm going to bump Zabu. I'm going to bump Goose. Morbius has been super strong in his style of decks. I think actually Goose and Morbius might go well together. Let's throw Morbius in between Goose and Daredevil for right now. I think Morbius is just super, super strong right now. So I think he gets a good spot at 5. I think he deserves to be in the top 5 right now. All right, next up we've got Forge. Give the next card you play +2 power. I think that's pretty strong, but overall not, not game breaking, not gonna give you a huge advantage. Maybe if you hit something awesome, like maybe you hit a multiple man, or I don't know. I don't play a ton with Forge, so therefore I don't think too highly of him. I think I would rather have Forge over some of these ones down here. So I'm gonna move these real quick. I'm sorry, I'm gonna put Quake at the bottom for now. I'm gonna move Viper right next to Quake, along with Maria Hill and Domino right there. Baron, again, same. Honestly though, I feel like Forge deserves a spot down there with them, at least for me. Like I said, I don't play him a whole lot. I do know that he can be fairly strong. 36 seems okay. Bucky, 2/1. When this is destroyed, create the Winter Soldier, which is a 2/6. So overall, he's pretty strong. He probably deserves a spot up here, which means we're gonna be moving some cards around. Let's move Forge here for now. Let's move Shocker down. Let's move Multiple Man down. Let's move Star-Lord down. Actually, I think I'd rather have Multiple Man than Star-Lord. So let's move Multiple Man back up. Let's move Star-Lord down. I like some of the flexibility from Cable. Again, I'm not super high on Mysterio. I do enjoy Falcon Cage and Cyclops. Let's just move them a little bit for now. Cyclops, there we go. I might have Medusa too high looking at some of these other cards. Craven deserves a spot in the top 20. Yeah, I think he goes well there. Same with Dagger. She might change given her little buff here. I do like Colossus. I do like Scarlet Witch. Colleen Wing. I still think Bucky is better than all these. So I think we're gonna have to move more and more cards. As much as I love Hazmat, I do think Bucky is probably better. I think Swarm deserves a little bump down. I think I'd rather have Swarm than Mr. Sinister now that I look at it, though. I think I'm going to move Swarm here, Mr. Sinister there. I do think Okoye needs to be moved, as does Mojo, as does the Collector. I think we're still having, where Bucky, I would feel better with Bucky than these cards. Now it's tough because Carnage on Bucky feels great. We've also got Deathlock on Bucky, which feels amazing. I think Bucky probably deserves a spot right in this range, somewhere between 9 and 13. Would I rather have Bucky or Carnage? I think just looking at them, I'd rather have Bucky. So I'm going to throw Bucky here. I think overall I'd rather have Lizard because there's no hoops to jump through, and if he goes down, you know that your opponent's got to commit there. So I feel like putting Bucky right next to Carnage feels pretty good for now. All right, Black Widow. On reveal, add a Widow's Bite to your hand, which of course is, a 0/0 that prevents them from drawing. A control card. Typically, that's my style of card, but I'm not a super huge fan of these 2-drops that only have 1 power. I don't think they're that great. I think they're lacking. So for me, I'm going to have to put her a little bit lower. I do think I'd rather have her than Mysterio, but I don't think that I would rather have her than Falcon. Maybe. I think she deserves a spot right here. It's close. Look at, we've got the other 2 1s here as well. So I feel like that's a fair spot. All right, looks like we've got 2 cards left. Adam Warlock. I apologize. At the end of each turn, if you are winning this location, draw a card. I've had a tough time making him work. I do have some cards that I think I could try with him that might make him a little bit better. But overall, I don't feel he's very strong. I feel he's not as strong as any of these cards in the top 20. I mean, he's 2-0, and I don't like the cards that have 2-1. So for me, I don't think Adam Warlock is all that good. I'm just going to keep moving until I feel like I hit a good spot for him. Right now, yes, I'd rather have Colleen Wing. Yes, I'd rather have Scarlet Witch. Yes, I'd rather have Colossus. Would I rather have Dagger and Kraven or Adam Warlock? I think he probably deserves a spot somewhere in this range. I've used him more than I've tried either of these 2 cards. So for that reason, I think I'm going to put him right there at 25. And that brings us to our last card, Angela. Now, Angela, I believe, is probably one of the best 2-drops in the game. She's got an ability that, after you play a card here, she gains +2 power. You can obviously play 3, even more cards if you can move some of those cards off that lane. I think Angela is probably one of the best 2-drops in the game. Is she above Armor, Zabu, Goose? I think it's close. I think she's I think she's in the top 3. For me, I think Angela is definitely in the top 3. And actually, I think I'm going to put her 1. I didn't intentionally leave that 1 spot open, but I do think Angela is probably the best 2-drop in the game. She's just good. If you get her on curve and you can start dropping cards down on top of her, you just feel real nice about where you're at. So for me, this is my list of 2-drop rankings as of right now. I feel pretty good about this. I definitely had to think a little bit. Looking at it, though, I think I did all right. But let me know what you guys think. Did I miss anyone? Of course, I'm only using the cards that I've actually played and had experience with. But what do you think? Is anyone too high, too low? Let me know in the comments and give me a good reason why. And maybe we'll revisit this list and see where we wind up. But overall, I think this is pretty solid. Please remember to subscribe and like the video. But be on the lookout for the one tomorrow where we're going to go ahead and rank the 3-drop. So until then, have some fun.